Right then, so section 3 of the manual, master slides. Master slides is a way of building consistency into your PowerPoint so that all of your titles are the same font size, the same style, the same color. Your bullets at different levels are similar. You know, you can keep that as one type of bullet, that as another type of bullet. You can bring in logos, so things like what we've got on the corner here. In every single slide, as you can see there, is brought in a picture, but it can act as a logo. So we're going to look at all those things that we can do now in the Slide Master. So if you go to the View tab, and then you can see the Slide Master here. It says here exactly what it does. Controls the look of your entire presentation. So that when you do things on the front end, when you close this area and you go back to the front, things will stay consistently as you've asked them to. Right, so let's click on the Slide Master. The first thing you've got to be aware of, there's so many different ones. You need to be always working on the main one used by all slides. And also, this is the one where you'll be able to capture, if I just show you that one, and we actually can capture the logo. That's the picture we brought in. If I was on a different type of slide and I tried to capture it, it won't do it. So in the test, for example, you need to be in here if you're going to change all of the slide content, headings and the titles, all of the bullets on the first level or the second or third, and if you're asked to remove a logo or a picture. So let's do that one first of all. Let's just delete that picture using the delete key. Notice how it disappeared off everything. Let's close the Slide Master. You've got the tab for it. Close it, look at the presentation, and the picture's gone from all of them. Back into View and back into Slide Master. Make sure it scrolls right up here. Even in the test, it opens up the scroll down here. So on that slide up there, we're going to change the headings, all of the headings, and go into the Home tab after we've selected it. We're going to do heading size, let's do 54, okay? Let's do red, just so it stands out, shadow and italic. Let's do our first bullet list. We can right click or we can drop down here, it doesn't really matter. And we could do hollow squares. Second level, we could do filled squares. Third level, if there's third level bullets in our PowerPoint, we could do something slightly different. We could go to bullets and numbering down here. And we could go into the picture one. We could find a picture on the internet. Unfortunately, you won't be able to do that at uni, so don't let us do it. So let's go to the customize instead. And you could go to something like wingdings right at the very end of your PowerPoint. Oh, just missed it. There you go. Wingdings. And you could put something like a smiley face in as a bullet point. And okay. So you can see that you've changed this, you've changed that. You could change the background of this placeholder as well if you wanted to. But let's just leave it at that. Before we go there, let's insert a logo or a picture. It's basically a picture we've got. So I've got one in the folder that I'm using, and you will have it too. So if we go to pictures, you'll find it in the Moodle lecture folder, sorry, not lecture theatre. And I'm going to the desktop because that's where I pop mine just for ease, so we can use it quite quickly. And I've got the PowerPoint learning materials here. There's two pictures. Let's bring this one in. It's coming rather large, so we can bring it right down, or it's resized from a corner, keeps it in proportion. Drop it in the corner wherever you want to do it, and you can start to see that it comes up on all of them there. Just check what happened there. I popped it in the wrong one, didn't I? So when I close this, it's not going to appear on all. So if I cut back to the main one, the one I changed everything, and I paste, remember cut and paste is move, notice how it now becomes a picture or a logo in every single slide. because it's applying to the master, if you like. So be really aware of that. Remember, don't go straight into your PowerPoint without closing your master first. So we close it. And notice how that, I know it's quite in your face, that red text. Every title heading is now red. If I put in a new slide, well, I can stay where we are actually, I don't need to go all the way down there. If I put in a new slide and I see that I start to text, it's that same consistency throughout. So that's what master slides do. Look at the bullets and look at if we put something in there, the third level is going to be smiley faces. And you cannot click on that picture to remove it. So really important with regard to Slide Master or Master Slides that you use a feature in the view area, and then you've got the Slide Master right there, and you can do lots of things with that. Moving on to another new feature. I'm just going to undo that Slide Master because I think it is quite difficult to bear with me, and we'll get back to where we were. You could do the same if you were going along with this, but let's go back to where we were originally. Otherwise you won't be able to bear watching the rest of the demonstration. Okay, so creating, editing and removing a hyperlink. So what we would do here, if we had a slide, if I add a new slide, title and content, if I used the display text, let's use the display text, click here. And they would tell you what your display text would be in the exam. And what we're going to do is we're going to highlight it. You can right click and you can go to hyperlink, or you can click on the insert and you can go to hyperlink that way. So we're changing this text into a hyperlink. So what we need to do is it's in the doc. It's going to be a website that we're going to. It's a CIA training, but let's do one for Coventry University. Let's stay with the theme. So I'm going to put www in. I need to put my HTTP in, sorry. Oh, it's coming up with one already. And let's put Coventry University in, and then OK. So then now if we're in showing mode, let's do that nice and quickly. Use Control-C or just click on it, and we should go to Coventry University website. Let's just escape. Oh, it's a bit slow. That's where it's gone twice now, so let's just close that down, and you can see that it worked. And I'll just escape, come out of the PowerPoint, and you can see that this is how we used it. We used the hyperlink, and then if we wanted to do something with it, on a right click, we can edit it. That means change it to another website, open it, copy it, or remove it. And you can see now it's gone back to normal text. So in the exam, you may already have the text there that you would highlight and right click and hyperlink, or you may have to create the text to hyperlink. So just be aware of the two options that you may need to go to. We've got the areas that we're going to cover next are going to be section 4, which is going to be organisational charts and charts, etc. So I'm going to leave it there, and then we're going to pick that up in the next. Okay, so continuing with the PowerPoint presentation slides, we're going to look at the organisational chart, creating a chart. It's all in section 4 of the manual. And we're going to do a quick import of a chart as well, even though that's not really in the syllabus. It's very useful to know. And it'll include a little bit of a look at tables, which is quite easy, and some smart art graphical designs. Okay, so the first thing we've got on our screen, as you can see, is it's an organisational chart. Click on it, click off it, you'll see that there's a pane come up. Notice also the 2 tabs at the top, and they're all to do with smart art tools. As you can see, there's your text pane on off, and then some other things that you might use here. You might use add below here. You've got add shape, drop down, add before, add above, add below, and I could do again, and you can see that how it works. Quite straightforward. Some other things in there though, if you just click on here, you can see the text is there. So if I did add something, but if I could put something in there, if I did want to type something there, I can either type it there or I can type it, carry on there. It doesn't really make any difference. But when it comes to the exam, one thing is they would expect you to put one in the first place, and the other thing is to actually do things to an existing one. So let's first of all look at how we'd insert an organisational chart. And it's not a chart, it is actually a smart art feature. So if we go to insert and we look at the smart art alongside the chart, it's actually here. So think about it as a graphic rather than a chart. So then we go to the hierarchy, because it's a hierarchical sort of graphic. There's your organisational chart on the default, tells you what it does on the tin. Okay, and then it pops in, and then if we click in there and we have our test pane on, you can see that we can start to manipulate that chart. So I'll pop some names and things into this one. Some of the things you may be asked to do in an existing chart, you can notice that I've got my tabs on the top here. So like I did before, you could add below. You could delete this. If you click inside and hit the delete key, you'll delete the text. If you click on the border edge of the box and delete, you will delete it. If you click on the border edge of this box, demote this, you'll look into your design tab, and there's your promote and demote buttons there. So to demote, puts down, promote, brings them back up the hierarchy again. Okay, so be aware of those things in a chart. Also, if I click in here and I insert a new chart, notice on the title and contents, it's got this sort of graphics going on in the middle of that chart. But let's click that in. Notice here how this type of slide already has that feature in it. So this is another way of doing that smart art into the hierarchy, into there. Okay, so that's another way of bringing in, if you can't remember where to go for smart art, it's actually on a slide generally there. Okay, just delete that slide. The next one's about creating new, editing data and selecting data. So if we click this existing chart, if I double click it, nothing comes up. So it's been created just inside of this feature. You can see the design up here. So I could select data here or edit data. Let's try the edit. Editing data eventually will allow me to come into what's called a sort of an internal little spreadsheet that's built in that allows us to change things. So we could actually do a term 3, so we could add to this chart some extra details. We could put some figures in, and we could put in Excel as well. Let's bring in another, let's do 66, term 2, 40, 55. And in term 3, let's do 42. In order to include that data into the chart, we could drag the handles down so that it's over the term 3 and including the data we've just put in, and see how the chart changes. Series 3 doesn't exist, so we're going to pull that back over so it doesn't include it. Okay, so now we've got the correct chart that we want. And that's how you would change existing data. So they may bring a chart up in the exam that looks like this, and you can select data that way, and it brings up a way of taking series off or leaving data out, things like that, or adding a new series. I might add a new series name, but in a sense we don't need to go that far because we could just add it in here. So we could put in access, and we can start to put some data in there. And remember, the blue handle needs to come over to the full thing to get the whole thing to come up. Also, before we finish with this chart, let's just look at a couple of things that you can do with regard to labeling and looking at the different features. So we click on the chart, this feature called chart elements. You can also find it in the tabs up here. There's your chart elements there. So, but it's dead easy here. If you click on there, you've got axis titles, which you could put on, and you can see it's ready for me to type something in. You can put in data labels, and you could put call outs, more options, whichever ones you want. You could take a legend off or put a legend on. So there's lots of things that you can do around these without going into it too much, and then you can put titles on, etc. So it's a really good way of labeling your chart. If we move on to the next chart, we've got once again, remember how we clicked on the chart and we had the design and we had edit data. So remember we looked at it previously on the cones, how we included and removed data from a chart. You can see they've got a series there. So we could fill that series in if we wanted to. And we could put, like we did before, keep it simple, Excel and access. So now it sort of makes sense. We could remove turn 3, so we could pull the handle off, so we don't no longer have turn 3, and pull it back down again. So just keep reminding yourselves of those features. Before we could change, you notice how we have different colours. So if you want to change one colour bar series, you can just do a fill and change that one colour to the same colour there. Remember though, if you want to isolate a bar, this one on its own, we have to click once for all handles, so you can see all the handles on Excel are that colour. Click again and it isolates just that bar. Then when you change the colour. Okay, continue with charts. We've got this chart object that you can insert either linked or embedded. It's not in the exam syllabus as such, but it is a really useful thing to know. So I'm just going to get rid of this chart that I've got in there. And I'm going to get the chart from the learning materials that you've got on the learning platform, or if you've downloaded them to your desktop for this. So I'm going into insert, I'm going to find the object area here. So embedded objects, documents, with files, inserted. So I'm going to click on that, create from file, and I'm going to browse to the desktop to find the chart. There's the learning materials I downloaded from the learning platform, and the demo chart linked. So I'll double click on that. If I want it linked, in other words, if I want it to change in the original source, the spreadsheet, and I want it to change in the PowerPoint when I make changes, I make sure it's linked. If it's embedded, then only changes will happen in the PowerPoint. So give it a minute to come in. Now you can see I can reduce its size, always from a corner to keep it in proportion. I double click on it, it should take me back to the source because it's linked. Okay, so that's how we do that. Let's close that. Next one, the table, very easy. Let's delete this table. Notice behind it you have the icons we talked about before and insert tables there. So you can put whichever tables you want in there. We can make it bigger. We can insert. We right click. You've got the option to insert and where you want to insert. You might have a column to the right. If it's a row, you would highlight the row. Oops, let's just make sure it stays highlighted when you do it. And then you've got your insert again, and you could have above. If you've got some text, as it demos in the presentation you can auto fit to make sure that it fits your text, and you can delete anything on a right click there's your delete, and you're asking what you want to delete, and you just do that. Okay. If you want to change the design, lovely designs up here to make it look better for your PowerPoint. Okay, to finish up this section, we're just going to have a quick look at the smart art features, the graphics. So you can see I've got two examples here. If I click on them, then their text panes become available. Remember, you've got your smart art tools. There's your text pane. Remember that if you type things into here, they will appear on there. Okay, if I wanted to put another one in, use an enter, and I can add another one here. Same over here. If I decide to delete one out, oh, I've just got two. Okay, the way we can bring those in, remember, if I delete these, the whole thing on the edge, make sure you pick up the whole edge, it's quite difficult sometimes. You've got them through here, so we'd go into there, pick one of the ones that you want. We've got a nice one there, okay. One in here, maybe to demonstrate something else, pyramid, complicated. And then you've got options to make them really nice using some of the features in the design tab if you want them to be colourful, and also if you want to change them. So you might decide to do a different type, like something like that. Okay, you've got lots of ways of doing things as well in there. Okay, so that gives you a quick idea about how to insert, edit and manipulate charts and graphics. The next chunk of slides for the last part of the presentation is going to be on animations, looking at objects, drawing objects, etc. And then some extras at the end to cover the last bit of the syllabus. Okay, so we're going to do the last few slides of the ICDL Module 6, the PowerPoint presentation 1. Okay, so for the syllabus, we need to look at some of these further areas. We've got bullets that are objects, just like drawings and pictures, and we're going to look at the animation of those. We're going to look at slide transition, a bit of a difference between the two. You can see at the top here on the tabs, transition is about applying a transition to a slide and maybe changing its effects to come in slightly differently. And then you may apply it to all or not, okay? When you look at that in transition, it has to be in show. So you go into the show and you can see that it happens there and then escape. So that's the slide transition, how it comes in. However, with animations, it's about what you're applying to bullets or objects. So for example, as it says over here, if you highlight all of the bullets in a particular slide together, and then you added an appear, for example, they all get the same animation number. That's because they all come in at the same time. So if we showed them, and we click on there, they all come in at the same time. So undo that. Also, what might happen is you might want them coming in individually. So if you click in one and do the same thing, you can see that they all have individual numbers for their animation. And if we look at that coming in, then they would come in one at a time on a click. And it's on a click because up here it's got on a click. If we wanted to see more detail on that, we've got what they call the animation pane. If you click that on, you will see on the drop down here, there, you can see each of those animated items there. You click on that one and that appears there. I click on the 7 and that appears there. So they're very connected. They may ask you to move things around through these buttons here up and down. So let's bring in an object, a picture, for example. So I'm going to go and get the picture I had from my files in one of the other presentation chunks that I did. I'm going to bring it in from the learner materials. Bring it in, I'm going to pop it there. So I'm actually going to now animate that. So I'm going to put in a different maybe a floating animation on that. Could change the effects if I want to. It's got things that there's the animation there, and you could have it floating up or floating down. This then, if I click on the 9, you see it comes after all of the other bullets. Let's say, for instance, I wanted that graphic to come in after third module bullet, say module 3. Then I could bring it up until it becomes after, as you can see, it's now 8, 7, 6. You can see it's changing, and now it's 6. So now if I run it and I check, got the first bullet, 2, 3, and then the graphic, and then it carries on. So you can move them up and down that way by indicating them here first. The other things you can remove. So if I had a bullet on a title there, that one, and I didn't want it on that, I only want it on the module bullets, I could delete it. And you can see it's been removed, and then they've all moved through to be different. And this one now is coming as 4 in there. That one there, number 4, is still coming after module 3. So that's a way of changing how things come in. So it's quite important to have a little practice of that. The other things we look at on the next slide, we're looking at the drawing tool section. So you can see that this one has an animation on it as well. You've got the 1, 2, it's quite all over the place. We can have a quick look and see what it does. So you've got clicks to make things change colours, dim in, dim out, bounce, come in. So many different things that you can do on animation. And you can see that when you click on the one, you'll see what it is, and that's it there. And that, I think that's the one where it had the effect options of dimming in and out, or timing can change, etc. Generally for the exam, at this level, they tend to just want you to put animation on, but it's important to know how to do these things. You can add text, as it's got there, directly into it. You don't have to put a text box in anymore. You can draw a circle using an oval. So the way we get our shapes is to go to Insert Shapes, pick up your oval, hold your Shift key down, and you will get a perfect circle. For a square, as it's got there, you would hold a Shift when you've got, so we've come up there now for me already, in the format page, hold the Shift and you get a perfect square. An arrow, if you're asked to change the end of an arrow, if you right click and you go to Format Shape, the end of the arrows become clear very quickly, and you can change the end of an arrow there. So you can do lots of things with these objects while we're still in there. We can change shapes of things as well. But we could remove, let's first of all, before we change shapes and use rotation and alignment, let's remove some of the animations. Remember, animations, animation pane. If we wanted to remove that one, we could delete, and then we could go on to delete others as well. So they are there. Then if we wanted to put one back on again, go into animations, apply it, and you get a quick preview of it, and then it's added. So moving on, if we just move on to the next slide, just close that down. As you can see here, you can have a go at drawing a perfect square and then using the tool, what we call rotating. So if we click on an object, it suddenly appears that we have a drawing tools tab. It goes for all of them. So every time you are asked to do something in PowerPoint with regard to a drawing object, use the format tab. Generally, everything you need is there. And some of the things you might need are the rotate function here. You can see how it changes depending on how I do it. Or the alignment tool. So you've got different, I click on them, distribute horizontally and distribute vertically. So you've got all these ways of moving things around without just grabbing it and doing that. So it's actually doing it properly using the tool. We change the arrow end. Do you remember how we did it? Right click, format, and then you've got the end arrow type, and you change it to another one. Close that down. If you were going to resize something and it wasn't happy being that size, let's, for example, go into this object 1, and we're going to do the height 8, only 4 at the moment, and the width 8. It doesn't sort of fit in with the shape, does it? If we go to this little launcher in the bottom here, it's allowed me to do that because the lock ratio aspect is off. If I click it on and close that, see how it's, make sure that stays on. I'm going to try to change that to a 6. It takes them both to 6. So because it's sort of acting a bit like a circle in a square, that's what happens when it comes to trying to change. Okay, so if I try to change that to a 5, it doesn't like the ratio, so it changes them both to 5, and that's because that's on. Take it off, close it, and then I can change that to 6. And it allows it. Okay, so be really aware of the ratio, the lock ratio. Final parts of the slide is grouping and layering. So these are quite, the layering is quite easy because you can see the format tab came up straight away as soon as I clicked on the object. Click on it again, it's back, off it, it's gone. So you can right click on these and you can bring to the front, send to the back. This obviously won't bring to the front because it's already at the front. But you can send to right to the very back, or you can send something backward, which means it only goes one layer. So if you use right to the back or right to the front, you're taking it through the layers. Otherwise, so if I put this right at the back, and you've got them here as well, right, backwards one layer, all the way back, all the way back. Okay. When it comes to the hearts, you can see that they're grouped, and it's a really good, useful tool if you want to take the whole of something somewhere else. For example, a flow chart. So you don't want to take every single thing into another application and take them in one by one. So you group it all in one picture, and then you can ungroup it again and mess about with it. This one's grouped. So it's either up here on there where you can ungroup it, or you can right click and ungroup it. And when you ungroup it, you see it becomes separate images that are individual again. Okay, so I could set it up differently, and then holding the select key, the shift key, select them, or right click and group, and then it becomes one picture again. Okay, so that's quite easy to do. So have a little practice at that. Finally, we're coming on to the few little extras that we have towards the end. So you've got things on your transition that you need to just make yourself aware of, that you may need to change your duration. You've got apply to all. You've got the on click that will come on mouse click. You've got after a certain amount of time. You've also got on the slideshow tab, you've got some other features. Earlier I did a hide on the slide. I could do it here. I can do it there. And you can see how it's hidden and then hide. So it's the same, it's like a toggle feature. If you rehearse timings, when you do your presentation, you'll see that when I click blah, 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 and I click on the next one, this is the overall and this is the new slide. Blah, 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 blah. Click on the next one and you can see. Then at the end, when you escape, it will ask you if you wanted to save that. I'm not going to, but that's a way of rehearsing. And remember we talked about a function key that runs from the current slide. Can you remember it? So Shift and F5. Outputs, anybody remember where that is? Which tab? Design tab. And we popped it in here. And there it is. these are the couple of things that we tend to forget because we don't really use them very much. That's why. And there's your output, just to remind you of what I've just shown you. And then finally, before a little bit of printing, which is of course probably quite important too, is in the slideshow tab itself. It's a setup slideshow. So the areas that you need to be aware of, I'll just pop this over here, is they may ask you to do a loop continuously. That means it just keeps playing all day as your guests are arriving and the PowerPoint just keeps going. Play without people narration, so nobody's talking. Show without animation could be something that you might be asked to use. And manually have the times or use the times automatically if present. So make sure you familiarise yourself with this area and tick or untick anything that's appropriate with regard to the test question. Finally, you've got your printing, very important, because when you go into file and you go into print, make sure you don't print when you're at home. Look at this. And you're messing around, you've got all of your features. So you've got all of the different ones, the ones where you give the handouts, and the actual, if you go full page slide, you're going to print it out one on every piece of paper. It's going to take forever. So really be careful about particular slides you can print. Be careful about what you're printing. And also a really good one on the prints is your speaker notes. So you've got a notes page there, and then you would see, I can find one with notes on. I can further down the front. And you might be able to see, and you can see how those notes pages would be quite helpful, particularly if they had notes on like that one. And then you could print that off as well. So printing is quite important too. So that's covered the PowerPoint syllabus and the learning outcomes for this module, module 6 for ECDL.